There is a stillness that exists beneath every thought you have ever had, beneath every fear that has kept you awake in the small hours of the night, beneath every striving and reaching and desperate grasping for the life you know belongs to you. It is not a stillness you create. It is not a stillness you earn through discipline or manufacture through practice. It is the stillness that was there before your first breath entered this world and will remain long after your last exhale releases into the infinite. And tonight, if you are willing, truly willing, not just intellectually curious, but genuinely open in the deepest chambers of your being, tonight you are going to find your way back to it. Because everything you have ever wanted, everything you have prayed for in the quiet of your most honest moments, everything that has burned in you with the intensity of something that simply must be, all of it lives inside that stillness, not waiting for you to deserve it, not hovering just beyond your reach as punishment for insufficient effort, living there, already alive, already real, already yours, in the only realm that has ever mattered, in the realm of consciousness, which is the only creative force this universe has ever known. Understand this, and let it move through you slowly, because it will unsettle some of what you have been taught. The very force that keeps you alive right now, in this moment, as your eyes move across these words, does not require your effort to function. Your heart is beating without your supervision. Your lungs are expanding and contracting in a rhythm so ancient and so intelligent that no human mind has ever fully mapped it. The 60 trillion cells of your body are communicating, replicating, healing, maintaining the incomprehensible complexity of a living human being, and they are doing all of it without a single anxious thought from you helping them along. The intelligence that runs your body, that knows how to grow a fingernail and fight a virus and convert light into sight and air into thought, that intelligence is not struggling, it is not grinding, it is not white-knuckling its way through the management of your existence. It is moving in effortless, perfect, surrendered trust, and it has been doing so every moment of your life. So I want you to sit with the question that arises naturally from that truth. If the deepest, most essential, most undeniably real operations of your existence function through surrender and not through force, through trust and not through anxiety, then when did you decide that getting what you desire required something different? When did you come to believe that the same intelligence capable of the miracle of your aliveness needs your worry to help it bring a relationship into your life, or a sum of money, or a healed body, or a changed circumstance? Where did that belief come from? And more importantly, what would happen if you let it go? Most people, and you may recognize yourself somewhere in this, most people have been operating under an assumption so deeply buried they cannot see it anymore. They believe that manifestation is a matter of force. They believe that desire must be earned through effort, through striving, through the kind of desperate grinding energy that announces to everyone, including the universe itself, that they are serious about what they want. And so they push. They visualize through clenched jaws. They affirm through gritted teeth. They perform their gratitude like students who know they are being graded, measuring the quality of their feeling, wondering if it is convincing enough, wondering if they are doing it right, wondering, always wondering, why the horizon keeps retreating no matter how hard they walk toward it. And I want to tell you why that happens, because the answer is the most important thing you may ever understand about the nature of creation. Anxiety is an assumption. Feel this deeply, because it is the key to everything. When you strive toward a desire with urgency, with desperation, with the grinding energy of someone who believes they must force reality into compliance, you are not simply feeling a feeling. You are broadcasting an assumption. You are operating from a belief so fundamental, so structural, so constantly operative in the background of your consciousness that you may never have looked directly at it. And that belief says, it is not yet done. Every frantic visualization, every desperate affirmation, every technique performed from the hollow ache of genuine need, all of it, without exception, is carrying that signal. The desire is still absent. It is still out there. It has not arrived. I am still waiting. And consciousness, which is not your enemy and not indifferent to your suffering, but which is simply the law, faithfully, precisely, without judgment or mercy or opinion of any kind, delivers the physical equivalent of that dominant inner assumption. It gives you more absence, more not yet, more almost, but not quite. Not because it is punishing you, not because you are unworthy, because the law is the law, and the law creates from the inside out, always and only from what you are most truly, most persistently, most deeply willfully assuming to be real. The truth is, there is an alternative. And the alternative is not passivity. It is not the slack indifference of someone who has given up and called their resignation enlightenment. It is something far more demanding than striving, and simultaneously far more powerful. It is the state of genuine knowing. There is a quality to the stillness of a person who truly knows something, and it is entirely different from the quality of a person who is hoping or wishing or working very hard to believe. Think of a woman in the early months of pregnancy. She cannot yet see the child. She cannot yet feel it move. The world has not yet confirmed what she knows to be true with any visible evidence. And yet she does not lie awake, conducting desperate rituals to ensure the baby is forming. She does not check obsessively for signs that something is happening. She knows. And from that knowing, she moves through her days with a quality of quiet, unhurried certainty that requires nothing from the outside world to sustain it. The absence of proof does not disturb her because proof has nothing to do with knowing. She already knows what is true. That is the state. Not the performance of belief, not the effortful maintenance of a feeling you are secretly afraid will collapse the moment you stop holding it up. The simple, grounded, almost unremarkable certainty of someone who has accepted a fact. It is done. Not will be done. Not working toward done. Not if everything goes right. Done. Done. Already. Now. Complete. Let this settle into your spirit, because the world has told you something about ease that you must examine if you are going to move forward. The world has told you, in 1,000 ways, explicit and implicit, that ease is suspicious, that things worth having must be hard to get, that struggle is evidence of seriousness, that if something comes to you without sufficient suffering, you probably do not deserve it, or there must be a catch, or it cannot be real. And so when someone speaks to you of relaxing, of letting go, of releasing the white-knuckled grip on the outcome you need so desperately, something rises up inside you, something defensive and familiar, something that says, but if I stop pushing, everything will fall apart. If I stop worrying, I am being irresponsible. If I stop monitoring, the universe will simply forget about me, and I will have been a fool for trusting. You must realize what that voice is actually saying. It is saying, I do not trust the law. I believe my effort is more powerful than the creative force of consciousness itself. I believe my anxiety is doing something useful in the equation. I believe that without my constant vigilance and striving, nothing will move in my favor. Do you see how much power that belief gives to your doubt? Do you see how it positions your worry as the most important force in the process? More important than the assumption, more important than the law, more important than consciousness itself. This is the trap within the trap. The belief that struggle is necessary is the very thing preventing the effortless arrival of everything you desire, because when you struggle, you are assuming resistance. And the law delivers a world where resistance is real. Let me tell you what happens when you genuinely, not performatively, not hopefully, but genuinely relax into the assumption of the wish fulfilled. Your inner conversation changes first, and this change is more significant than you might initially understand. Right now, for most people, the inner conversation runs like a low-grade crisis management session. What if it does not come? What if I am doing this wrong? What if I have missed something important? What if I do not deserve it? What if the timing is wrong and everything falls apart? An endless loop of contingency and doubt, playing beneath every other thought like a fever that never quite breaks. When you genuinely inhabit the state of the wish fulfilled, when you have truly, without performance, accepted that it is done, that conversation changes not because you have suppressed it by force, not because you have argued yourself into a better feeling, but because the doubt loses its foundation. It cannot run the loop of what if it does not come when you have accepted without reservation that it already has. The fear-based conversation needs the assumption of absence to function. Remove that assumption and the loop simply has nothing to stand on. In its place arises a quality of inner silence that is not empty but full, saturated with the felt sense of the already, humming with the quiet reality of the fulfilled desire. Your body changes too. You know the body of anxiety. You have lived in it. The tightness across the chest, the shallow breath that never quite reaches the bottom of the lungs, the clenched jaw, the restless energy of someone perpetually braced against an imagined threat. That is the body of someone assuming lack, assuming resistance, assuming that the worst is somewhere around the corner, waiting for an inattentive moment to arrive. The body of someone genuinely resting in their assumption feels entirely different. The breath deepens without instruction. The shoulders find their natural place. The eyes soften from their habitual vigilance. There is a quality of presence, not the spacing out of avoidance, but the genuine arrival of someone who has stopped running from an imagined future and returned to the only moment that has ever been real, this one. And people notice this in you, even when they cannot name it. There is something magnetic about a person who is genuinely at peace with what they know. Not arrogant peace, not the performance of confidence, the quiet, self-contained, grounded peace of someone who simply knows, and in knowing, needs nothing from the outside world to confirm what they have already accepted as true. And then, in the way that the world calls miraculous, though it is only the law being precisely and faithfully itself, the outer world begins to reorganize. Not always immediately, not always visibly at first, but with a precision and an elegance that, once you have witnessed it in your own life even once, leaves you permanently changed in your understanding of how reality actually works. The bridge of incidents forms. The right person appears in a conversation you were not expecting to have. The email arrives from a direction you never would have anticipated. The solution presents itself in a moment of perfect stillness rather than in any moment of frantic striving. The circumstance shifts, and it shifts not because you forced it, but because you released it. And in that releasing, the current of your assumption was finally free to flow in the direction of its nature. This is why Neville Goddard taught what he taught. He understood something that the world's great spiritual traditions have always known, but rarely stated with such clarity. He understood that consciousness is the only reality, that the inner state is the only creative force, that the world you experience is not the cause of your feeling, but the effect of your assumption. The scripture that was most alive to him was not an instruction for behavior, but a description of a law. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not so will he become. Not so might he eventually manifest if he does everything correctly. So is he. Present tense. Immediate. Absolute. What you are assuming in the deepest, most genuine level of your being is what you are. And what you are is what the world around you must reflect. Because the outer is always, without exception, the mirror of the inner. There is a word that deserves to be reclaimed in its full and ancient depth. Sabbath. Not a day of the week, not a religious obligation, a state of consciousness. The holy rest that follows the completion of creation. On the seventh day, the creative force rested, not because there was nothing left to do in some logistical sense, but because the work of inner creation was finished. The assumption had been made, the seed had been placed into the fertile soil of consciousness with full conviction. And then, rest. Not the rest of someone who has given up, the rest of someone who has accomplished the only thing that ever needed accomplishing, the inner shift, the acceptance of the end, the genuine, settled, unhurried certainty that it is done. This is your invitation, to enter your own Sabbath, to look at the desire that lives in you, the one you have been straining toward, the one that has caused you the most sleepless nights, the one that has made you question your worthiness and your faith and the reliability of any law at all, and to say of it, with the authority of someone who understands how creation works, it is finished, it is good, and then to rest there. Understand this about the harvest, because the farmer knows something that the striving mind refuses to accept. When the seed goes into the ground in good soil, the farmer does not dig it up the next morning to check whether it has germinated. He does not lie awake calculating whether the growth is on schedule. He does not perform rituals over the soil to try to accelerate what the law is already doing perfectly. He plants, and then he trusts, not as an act of forced positivity, but as the natural response of someone who understands that once the seed is in the ground, the growing is not his work. It is the work of the law, of nature doing precisely what nature does when the right conditions are met. Your assumption is the seed, the soil is consciousness, and the law, which has never once failed, which cannot fail any more than gravity can selectively decide not to operate, is the force that grows what you have planted into its harvest. Your role is not to make the growth happen. Your role is to not dig it up, to not interrupt the process with doubt, to not demand visible proof of germination before the shoot has had time to reach the surface. Your role is to plant with genuine assumption and then to rest, returning faithfully and without drama to the state of the wish fulfilled whenever you notice you have drifted, the way you return your attention to your breath in meditation, gently, without self-punishment, without performance. Oh, I drifted. Here is the state. I am here again. Let me speak to the moments of contradiction, because they will come, and you must be prepared for them, or they will sweep you back into the old country. You will settle into this quality of knowing, this quiet, grounded Sabbath rest, and then something will happen in the outer world that seems to directly contradict everything you have accepted as true. The circumstances will press against your assumption with what feels like overwhelming force. The bank account will say no. The relationship will seem to move in the wrong direction. The body will report symptoms that say something other than what you have claimed. And in those moments, something old and familiar and deeply grooved will say, "You see, you were foolish to believe. Look at what is actually here. Look at the evidence." In that moment, you will face the only choice that has ever mattered in the practice of consciousness. You can react, taking the bait of appearances, letting what you see determine what you assume, abandoning the state and descending back into the anxiety that feels, at least, like doing something. Or you can remain. You can look at the contrary evidence and say, quietly, privately, with the authority of someone who understands that all outer circumstances are lagging indicators of inner states. This is old data. This is the echo of a prior assumption still working its way through form. It is not the creative force currently operating in my life. I see it. I acknowledge it. I do not deny it exists, and I refuse absolutely to let it determine my inner state. And then you return, not frantically. The return itself must carry the quality of the state you are returning to, gentle, unhurried, a simple coming back, the way a flame briefly disturbed by wind simply returns to its natural burning. Every time you make this choice, every single time you choose to remain in the inner knowing rather than react to the outer appearance, you do something that compounds like interest in the account of your consciousness. You demonstrate to your own deepest self that your inner reality is more true to you than your outer circumstances. And consciousness, registering this choice, registers this faithfulness, deepens the assumption. It becomes more embedded, more automatic, more genuinely yours. Until the day comes, and this day does come for those who are faithful, when the appearances simply stop moving you in the old way. Not because you have conquered your doubt through heroic spiritual warfare, because you have outgrown the need for the outer world to confirm what you already know. That is mastery. Not a triumphant arrival at some elevated state, the quiet, ordinary, unhurried life of someone who has simply stopped needing external proof to feel internally complete. You are not here to earn your good. Let this go all the way through you, because most of you have been told the opposite so consistently and from so early an age that it has become invisible, like water to a fish, like the air to someone who has never considered that breathing is even happening. You are not here to earn your desires through sufficient suffering or adequate discipline or the right combination of techniques performed with enough genuine feeling. Your desires are not prizes distributed by a cosmic authority who has been watching and grading and evaluating your worthiness. They are not being withheld as punishment for your past mistakes or your current doubts. They are revelations. They are precise, personal, intimate signs of what already exists as your inheritance in the realm of consciousness. The moment a desire arises in you, it is because on some level that the thinking mind cannot fully access, you are aware that this reality belongs to you, that it is available to you, that somewhere in the infinite field of all that is possible, this particular reality is calling your name, not as a taunt, as a promise. And your role is not to create it. It already exists. Your role is to claim it, to say, with genuine settled conviction that does not tremble under questioning, "This is mine. I accept it as mine." It is done in consciousness, and therefore it must, by the law that never fails, become done in form. How would you feel if you knew, the way you know your own name, the way you know what city you live in, without any need to verify, without any anxiety about whether you might be wrong? If you simply knew that what you desire is already complete in consciousness and therefore inevitable in form. Not how would you feel when you see the proof, right now, in your body, in your breath, in the quality of the silence underneath your thoughts. Find that feeling. Not the intellectual approximation of it, but the actual felt sense of it. The way knowing lives in the body as a kind of quiet fullness, a settling, a coming home. And then be that. Not perform it for the universe. Not display it as evidence of your spiritual sophistication. Simply be it. Let it change the quality of your breath. Let it soften something behind your eyes. Let it slow the urgency that has been running through you like a current you forgot you could step out of. Let the atmosphere of "it is done" become the air you move through, the texture of your ordinary moments, the quiet background hum of everything you do and say and think throughout your days. This is not a technique you add to your life like another item on a spiritual to-do list. It is an identity. The person who knows it is done inhabits the world differently than the person who is hoping it will be done. They face the same circumstances, they move through the same external reality, and they live in entirely different worlds because they are being entirely different assumptions, and consciousness delivers the physical equivalent of the assumption with perfect, unfailing, impersonal precision. So breathe. Let your shoulders find their natural place. Let the jaw unclench. Let go of the need to monitor the progress, to check the signs, to perform your faith correctly enough that the universe finally decides you have qualified for delivery. You already qualify. The desire in your heart is not a wish. It is a promise written in the language of the infinite, and it is already fulfilled in the only realm that creation has ever moved from, the inner, the invisible, the assumed. Everything else, everything you will see in the days to come as this assumption works its way into form, is simply the echo catching up to the reality you have already claimed. It is done. Rest in that. It is done.